When I first started learning Portuguese, I was already a Spanish speaker, so I brought a lot of the Spanish with me into my Portuguese learning. And a lot of times I would say a word and people would look at me like I'm crazy, and then I would learn the word that they use. Oh, okay, it's different in Portuguese than in Spanish. And then later on my language learning journey, I'd find out that those words exist in Portuguese, just nobody uses them. So let's take a look at 10 words that exist in Portuguese that I tried to pull from other Latin languages and Brazilians didn't understand me. In Spanish you have desayuno, and in French you have déjeuner, and both of these mean to break the fast. And I learned here in Portuguese that the word for breakfast is Café da Manhã, so coffee in the morning. But the word desjejum does exist in Portuguese, and it literally means to break a fast. So in Brazil, when people are talking about repairing or fixing something, they'll usually use the word consertar. But I did learn that reparar is a word and it does mean to repair. When the Brazilians are speaking really fast to you and you want to say slow down, my first instinct was lento, because in Spanish it's lento, French lent. You see I'm pulling from other Latin languages here, and Brazilians didn't understand me because you have to say devagar, which is why I made a whole music video called Devagarinho. Devagarinho, sei que fala lento para esse gringo, apenas aprendi com Duolingo, não sei nada, eu estava fingindo. But the word lento does exist in Brazilian Portuguese, and it does mean slow. When you're in a building, you have the first floor, second floor, and in Spanish the word is piso. And I tried to use that here one time, and people acted like they didn't know what piso was, and they're like, no, andar. And so I was like, oh, okay, so different andares. And then I was in a building in Brasília, and they had piso, and I was like, so piso does exist, it is a word, but Brazilians act like they don't know what it is. So maybe only in newer cities like the capital they know, I don't know. Because Brazil is such a large country, they have a lot of accents here, and they use the word sotaque to describe their different accents. But the word acento does mean accent, but I think normally it means to like accentuate something. When Brazilians want to describe a noise that bothers them, they'll use the word barulho. But if they're taking a picture of something and you have all that little grain in there, the noise in the picture, they'll use the word ruído, which is the Spanish word for noise, but it only applies to photography in Brazilian Portuguese. I've eaten a lot of delicious food in Brazil. The default is just want to say delicious, you know, delicioso, delicioso, delicioso. It's the same in every language. And then the Portuguese are like, no, gostoso. But delicioso is a word and it means delicious. So you can say it. Somebody should understand, maybe. In Spanish specifically, when you want to share your opinion, you usually say creo que, I believe that. And in Brazilian Portuguese, normally you say acho que, I find that. But the verb crer does exist, and it does mean to believe, but it has more of a spiritual connotation when you believe in a higher power. So when you want to say, I believe that, in Portuguese, normally they say acreditar. As a polyglot, I find myself mixing up my languages quite a bit, and in Spanish, you would say mezclar. You know, whether you're talking about food or languages, mixing it up. Estoy mezclando. But in Portuguese, you would normally use the verb misturar when you want to talk about mixing something, or mexer if you're talking about food. But the word mezclar does exist in Brazilian Portuguese, and it does mean to mix. So in another video, I talked about how Portuguese was the only one that said tomar banho instead of saying una ducha, some form of ducha, dolce, douche. But the word ducha does exist in Portuguese, and it does mean shower, but the word that Brazilians will normally use is chuveiro, or when they want to talk about the actual shower apparatus, just say tomar banho in Brazil, because nobody's going to understand ducha for some reason. So what did you think of this list? Do you have any that you want to add, words that you've learned in your Portuguese journey that you thought weren't words, and then turns out they were words, and just the locals didn't know them or didn't use them? Feel free to leave a comment below. Remember to like and share this video. Share it with all of your friends. Anybody learning Portuguese, they're going to want to know this stuff. It's super important information. And yeah, check out one of these videos up here. I hope you have a wonderful day. Remember to subscribe, and I'll see you guys. Maybe it's over here. Subscribe button, maybe over here. Sorry. It's one of these places. Yeah, I hope you have a great day. I'll see you guys in the next video.